Your mother died. So what? Serve my guests or sleep on the street? My husband laughed. I served the food with tears streaming down my face. My husband's boss, an older man with a cane, grabbed my wrist. Why are you crying and in a black dress? I told him. His face turned to stone. He walked over to my husband and said loudly, Everyone knew your wife's mother, except you, apparently. She was my sister. And now let me tell you what's going to happen to your career, your house, and your pathetic life. Hello. Write in the comments where you're listening from. Don't forget to subscribe and like. Enjoy the story. But to understand how those words landed, we need to go back 4 hours. Alicia stood in the middle of the kitchen staring at the cooling teapot. The call from the hospital came in exactly at noon. The doctor spoke dryly, professionally, but Alicia remembered only one word: deceased. Her mother, Nina, was gone. For 4 hours, Alicia just sat on a stool, staring into space, until the front door slammed in the entryway. Blake was home. He stormed into the kitchen, yanking off his tie, and immediately frowned. The stove was empty. No smells of roasting meat, no preparations. Are you deaf? He barked, instead of a greeting. I called this morning. Victor Bell, my new CEO, is coming tonight. My chance at becoming vice president hinges on this dinner. Where's the duck? Where are the appetizers? Alicia raised her red, swollen eyes to him. She tried to speak firmly, but her voice broke into a whisper. Blake, Mom's gone. She died at noon today. Blake froze for a second. He looked at his wife, then at the empty counter, and his face settled into an expression of intense annoyance, like his car had broken down at the worst possible time. Died? He repeated coldly. Well, we all go someday. She was over 60, heart was weak, it was expected. Expected? Alicia stood up. Blake, this is my mother. I can't host guests tonight. Call them, cancel. Tell them we're grieving. Blake walked right up to her. He was a head taller and knew how to use his height to intimidate. He grabbed her shoulders and shook her hard. You don't seem to get it, he hissed into her face. Bell isn't the kind of man you cancel on. He drove across town to check out his potential VP. If you start playing the tragedy queen now and ruin everything, I will throw you out right now onto the street. Alicia looked out the window. Outside, the February wind howled, sweeping snow across the gray apartment blocks of the south side of Chicago. She had no money, and the keys to her mother's apartment were still at the hospital. She had nowhere to go. You won't do that, she said quietly. Try me, Blake sneered. This apartment is corporate housing, registered to the company. You are nobody here. You have 2 hours. Wash your face, put on some makeup, and make sure that table is overflowing, and wipe that mournful look off your face. Guests need a celebration, not a funeral. Alicia swallowed her tears while slicing vegetables. Her hands shook, the knife slipped, but she kept cooking. The fear of her husband and the habit of obedience had become ingrained in her over 10 years of marriage, deeper than she realized. When the duck was in the oven, she went to change. Her hand reached for the stylish, light-colored dress Blake liked, but her fingers chose another, a severe, high-necked black dress that fell to her knees. It was her quiet rebellion, the only way to honor her mother's memory in this house of absurdity. Exactly at 7, the doorbell rang. Blake threw the door open, beaming a fake smile. Mr. Bell, what an honor. Please come in. A tall, somber man, about 65, walked into the entryway. He leaned on a heavy cane with a silver knob. His gaze was sharp, heavy. He scanned the cramped entryway, the cheap wallpaper, and finally rested his eyes on Blake. I hope dinner is worth driving all this way, he muttered in a bass voice, taking off his coat. Oh, my wife is a culinary miracle, Blake said, pushing Alicia forward. Meet Alicia, my better half. Victor Bell nodded at her, without smiling. Alicia tried to force out a greeting, but a spasm caught her throat. She merely bowed her head and quickly retreated to the kitchen. Dinner was torture. Blake cracked jokes, topped up his boss's bourbon, and endlessly boasted about his non-existent successes. Alicia brought out plates and changed silverware. Tears streamed down her cheeks, continuously, silently dripping onto the collar of her black dress. Blake noticed. As she bent to clear an empty plate, he forcefully kicked her ankle under the table. Alicia gasped, but immediately covered her mouth with her hand. "Is something wrong, dear?" Victor asked, pausing his meal. "She's so clumsy," Blake quickly interjected, flashing a malicious look at his wife. "And too sentimental. She saw a stray kitten this morning, still crying about it. Women, what can you do? Right, Mr. Bell?" The guest did not answer. He was staring intently at Alicia. In his eyes there was no irritation, but a strange, tense curiosity. "Wine, Mr. Bell?" Alicia asked with a shaky voice, picking up the bottle. She approached the guest from the right side. Her hands trembled so much that the neck of the bottle clinked against the glass. She leaned forward, and at that moment, the wide sleeve of her black dress slipped down to her elbow. A vintage silver locket on a heavy chain gleamed on her thin, pale wrist. A complex crest, 2 crossed keys, and a falcon was engraved on the locket's cover. Victor Bell froze. His hand shot forward with surprising speed for his age and grabbed Alicia's wrist. The wine bottle slipped from her fingers and shattered on the floor, spilling a red puddle onto the linoleum. "What the hell are you doing, you idiot?" Blake shouted, jumping up. "That's a collector's wine!" "Shut up!" Victor roared, making Blake slump back down. The old man didn't release Alicia's hand. He pulled her closer to the light, peering at the locket. His fingers trembled. "Where did you get this?" he asked hoarsely. "This crest. Where is it from?" Alicia looked at him, startled. It was my mom's. She gave it to me ages ago, told me to guard it and never take it off." Victor looked up at her. Now he was staring at her face, as if he were seeing a ghost. He scrutinized the shape of her eyes, the curve of her cheekbones. "What was your mother's name?" he asked softly. "Nina. Nina Dixon. And her maiden name?" "I don't know. She never said. She told me she had no family besides me." Victor slowly unclenched his fingers. He leaned heavily on his cane and struggled to stand up. His face, usually ruddy and commanding, had turned gray. "Nina," he whispered. "My Nina. I've been looking for her for 30 years. 30 years. He turned to Alicia, tears welling in his eyes. "Why are you in black, girl? Why have you been crying all evening? Answer me!" Alicia sobbed, no longer able to hold back. "Mom died today. At noon." A deadly silence fell in the room. All they could hear was the hum of the refrigerator. Victor closed his eyes, and a single, rare tear rolled down his cheek. Then he opened them, and fury raged within. He slowly turned his head to Blake. Blake sat pale, mouth agape, switching his gaze from his boss to his wife. "Mr. Bell, I didn't know you knew each other. She just—" "You forced her." Victor's voice sounded like the call of an approaching avalanche. "Her mother, my own sister, died today, and you made her roast a duck and serve you like a—" "Sister?" Blake squeaked. "But she's just a seamstress." "She was a belle." Victor slammed his cane on the floor. "She ran away from our tyrant father 30 years ago to save her child. To save you, Alicia. She gave up millions to live quietly. And you?" Victor stepped toward Blake, who recoiled into the back of his chair. "You are not just fired, Hayes. You are destroyed. Tomorrow morning, no decent company in this city will even open your resume. I will personally make sure you sweep floors for the rest of your days." Blake, realizing he had nothing to lose, suddenly sneered, his face contorted with malice. "Oh yeah? Well, get out, both of you. Just remember, Mr. Bell, you're in my apartment right now, and you, Allie, too. This is corporate housing provided to me under contract. Since I'm fired, I demand that unauthorized persons vacate the premises. And as for you, my sweet wife, we'll see each other in court. Get out." Blake triumphantly crossed his arms, feeling he had the last word. Victor suddenly began to laugh. It was a terrifying, dry laugh. He pulled out his phone, dialed a number, and turned on the speakerphone. "Hello, legal department. This is Belle. Pull up the data on the Hayes apartment, East 87th Street, apartment 12. Whose balance is it on?" The voice from the phone answered clearly and loudly. "Mr. Bell, that property is not on the holding company's balance sheet. 5 years ago, that building was transferred to the private Bell Family Trust. According to the trust's charter, direct heirs of the family have the right of ownership." Victor hung up the call and looked at Blake, who was beginning to slide out of his chair. "You didn't live here because you were a valuable employee, Hayes. You lived here because my security detail long suspected where Nina might be, and we kept this fund just in case. This apartment belongs to the trust, and the sole heir of my sister is standing right here." Victor pointed his cane at Alicia. "So, you're not kicking us out. Alicia is about to decide if you get to stay under the roof that she now owns." Blake turned his gaze to his wife. For the first time in years, real animal fear was in his eyes. Alicia wiped her tears and took a step forward. "Get out." "Quietly," Alicia said firmly, pointing to the door. Blake backed away, hit his spine on the doorframe, and suddenly his face contorted. Fear turned into a crazed, trapped fury. He lunged, grabbed the heavy crystal vase from the table, and hurled it against the wall right next to Victor Bell's head. Shards flew everywhere. "You'll be the one getting out!" he shrieked, his voice cracking. "This is my home. I'm registered here. Just try to touch me." He darted into the hallway, and before Victor could stop him with his cane, slammed the heavy metal door right in front of them. One lock clicked, then another, and the chain rattled. "I'm calling the cops!" His muffled scream came from behind the door. "Hello, police! Get over here immediately. East 87th Street, apartment 12. My wife is drunk and brought some gangster over. They're breaking furniture and threatening to kill me. She's having DTs. She's insane." Alicia stood on the landing, staring at the closed door of her own apartment. She could hear her husband hysterically lying into the phone, describing her non-existent drunkenness and aggression. "We need to break the door down." Victor Bell gripped the cane's knob until his knuckles turned white. "I'll call my security." "No!" Alicia shook her head. She had no strength left for a fight. "The police will believe him. He knows how to be convincing. And me? Look at me, crying in someone else's apartment by the papers. They'll take us both to the precinct until they sort it out. I don't want to spend the night after my mom's death in a holding cell." Victor sighed heavily, admitting she was right. He draped his cashmere overcoat over her shoulders as her belongings were inside. "Let's go. You can't stay here." They drove in silence. The city outside the window was drowning in wet snow, turning into blurry streaks of light. Victor's car was huge, warm, and smelled of expensive leather, but Alicia was shivering. She thought about her mother, whose body now lay somewhere in a cold morgue, while her daughter drove into the unknown with a man she had just met. Victor's home was not just a house, but a true estate behind a tall fence in an affluent suburb. Inside, it was quiet and empty. He led her into a massive living room where a fire was already crackling in the fireplace and poured her hot tea. "Why did she run away?" Alicia asked, staring into the flames. "If you're so rich, why did we live counting pennies?" Victor sat down in the armchair opposite her. He looked like a tired old man from whom the mask of the fearsome executive had fallen. "Our father was a terrible man, Allie. He built an empire on the backs of others. To him, people were resources, and family was an asset. He wanted to marry Nina off to a partner's son, a cruel, depraved man, to seal a company merger deal." Victor rubbed his face with his hands. "Nina begged him not to, but Father said, 'You will do what's best for the family.' That night she vanished. She took only a small bag and this locket. She changed her name, her papers, cut all ties. I searched for her, hired detectives, checked databases, but she was smart. She knew how to hide. She chose poverty over a gilded cage. She was afraid Father would find her and take you, or that I would become just like him." "And did you?" Alicia asked quietly. "I tried not to be," he answered hollowly. "But business requires ruthlessness. Now that I've found you, everything I have is yours. The money, the connections, the lawyers. We'll crush your husband. We'll get the apartment back. You won't want for anything." Alicia put her cup on the table. The clink of the porcelain seemed too loud. "I don't want your money, Mr. Bell, and I don't need revenge right now. I only want one thing, to bury my mother, with dignity. And after that, I'll decide how to live my own life." The next 2 days passed in a fog. Victor took care of all the expenses. He organized the wake at the city's finest funeral home. Alicia barely slept, dealing with paperwork, choosing the casket and the flowers. Blake had vanished. He was barricaded in the apartment, ignoring calls, and seemed to have disappeared from the face of the earth. The day of the funeral was gray and windy. Only a few people gathered at the cemetery. A couple of neighbors, a few of her mom's former colleagues from the tailoring shop. Alicia stood by the casket, looking at her mother's peaceful face. She looked so small among the white satin. The minister began the prayer. Alicia closed her eyes, listening to the monotonous chant, when the silence of the graveyard was broken by the screech of tires. A black SUV pulled up to the gate. Blake stepped out. He was clean-shaven, in an expensive suit bought with the money Alicia had saved for their vacation. Beside him, a thin man scurried, carrying a leather briefcase. A lawyer. Blake did not look bereaved. He walked toward the grave with the confident stride of an owner. "Stop the ceremony!" he yelled loudly. People turned around. The minister paused. Victor Bell stepped forward, blocking his path. "You dared to show your face here?" he growled. "Get out before I tell my security to bury you in the next plot." "Easy there, Uncle," Blake smirked. "Let's stay within the legal limits." The lawyer immediately popped out from behind him and opened his briefcase. "My client, Blake S. Hayes, is the lawful husband of Alicia Dixon. According to the family code, he has equal rights to make decisions. But the main thing is this." The lawyer pulled out a notarized paper. 3 years ago, Ms. Dixon signed a general power of attorney in the name of her husband, granting him the right to dispose of all property and represent her interests in all instances, including burial matters. The power of attorney is still valid for 2 more years. Alicia stared at the paper, and her knees went weak. She remembered. 3 years ago, Blake wanted to take out a car loan but couldn't get approved due to bad credit. He asked her to sign the papers for the car in her name, took her to the notary, and slid a stack of documents across the desk. "Just formalities for the bank. Sign here and here, babe. We're running late." She had signed without looking. And so what? Victor looked at the document with contempt. "That doesn't give him the right to disrupt a funeral." "It does," Blake intervened, adjusting his tie. "As my wife's legal representative, I object to the burial location. I believe this cemetery is too expensive and inconvenient. I demand that the process be suspended and the body transferred to the city morgue until the dispute is settled." A murmur of horror ran through the crowd. "You monster," Alicia whispered. "You want to take Mom's body? Why?" Blake stepped close to her. He smelled of expensive cologne and bourbon. "It's simple, Allie," he said so quietly that only she could hear. "You sign the deed of gift for your mom's old lakefront cabin property right here on my lawyer's car hood, and we continue the funeral. You refuse, and your mother will lie in the morgue's freezer for another month while we sue." Alicia looked at him, not recognizing him. This was not just an egotist. This was an enemy. "The cabin?" she asked, bewildered. "That wreck without a roof? It's just rotten wood and weeds. Why do you want it? It's worthless." Blake smiled smugly. "That's none of your business. Maybe I want to grow tomatoes there. So what's it going to be? Do you sign, or does Mom go back to the cold?" Victor Bell, standing nearby, suddenly frowned. He pulled out his phone and quickly typed something. "The cabin property, lot 34, he muttered, looking at a cadastral map. His face changed. He looked up at Blake, his expression showing not just disdain, but an understanding of the immense wickedness at play. "You little vulture," Victor drawled. "What is it?" Alicia asked. Victor turned the phone screen toward her. Ali, he's not planning to grow tomatoes. Yesterday, the governor signed the final plan for the construction of the new interstate highway. It will pass right through the lakefront cabin community. Alicia still didn't understand. She looked at her husband, whose cheek had started to twitch nervously. And this, Victor said sharply, staring Blake in the eye. The government is buying those plots for demolition, but not at the market price of derelict shacks. The land in that zone has now been rezoned for commercial use. The compensation for your plot, Ali, will be around $4 million. The crowd gasped. Alicia turned her gaze to Blake. He knew. He had known this for months. He didn't just want the cabin. He wanted to steal $4 million from her by blackmailing her with her dead mother's body. You knew, Alicia breathed. It was not a question, but a verdict. Blake took a step back. His face was covered in red splotches. The mask of the confident man of the world cracked. So what? He snapped. We're a family. It's shared money. Sign, or I swear, this casket is going back to the city right now. It's not going anywhere. Victor Bell's calm voice rang out. He didn't shout. He simply made a hand gesture, and two sturdy men in black overcoats, who had been standing quietly by the cars, walked silently toward Blake and his lawyer. Your document is worthless trash, Victor said, addressing the thin lawyer. A power of attorney can be revoked at any second. Ali, speak. Alicia stood tall. For the first time in days, she felt not pain, but a cold, ringing rage. I revoke the power of attorney right now, with witnesses present. Blake's lawyer turned pale and snapped his briefcase shut. In that case, we have no legal grounds to interfere. Mr. Hayes, we should leave. What? Blake shrieked. Who are you listening to? I pay you. Do something! But Victor's security men were already gently but firmly taking them by the elbows. The funeral continues, Victor announced loudly to the minister. And these gentlemen, please escort them to the gate. Blake tried to struggle, spewing curses, yelling that he would sue everyone, but his voice was swallowed by the wind. A minute later, the black SUV peeled out and disappeared around the bend. The funeral proceeded peacefully. When the casket was lowered into the frozen ground, Alicia threw in the first handful of earth. With every thud of the soil hitting the lid, something died inside her. The old ally, who was afraid to look her husband in the eye, who endured humiliation to save her marriage, stayed down there. Let's go, she told Victor when it was over. Where to? My place? He asked. No, home, to the apartment. I want to throw out his things, right now. Together with Victor and his security, they went up to the 5th floor. The door wasn't locked. The lock was broken, as if someone had hastily kicked it in from the inside or tried to break in. Alicia pushed the door open and froze in the doorway. The apartment was gone. More accurately, it was no longer a home. It was a battlefield. Furniture was overturned. Wallpaper was torn in shreds in the hallway. Shards of dishes, clothes, and books lay on the floor. The television was gone, the laptop too. Blake had taken everything of value, even the microwave. Oh my God, Alicia whispered, stepping over a pile of linen dumped out of the closet. He was looking for money or documents, Victor concluded, surveying the destruction. Or he just wanted to hurt you. Alicia walked into the kitchen. There, amidst the chaos, on the only table still standing, lay a thick folder, forlorn. To my beloved wife was scrawled on it in black marker. Alicia's hands trembled as she opened it. Inside were not letters or photos. These were letters from banks and payday loan companies. Quick Cash, Speedy Credit, Loan Express. Dozens of logos that made her eyes swim. What is this? She asked, shuffling the papers. Victor took a sheet and scanned it. His eyebrows shot up. These are notices of past due balances, pre-litigation demands, and collection agency threats. But we didn't have any loans, Alicia murmured, bewildered. Blake said we lived within our means. Look at the borrower's name, Ali. She lowered her gaze. In the borrower line, it was the same name everywhere. Alicia N. Dixon. She dropped the folder. The papers scattered across the floor. I didn't take anything. I was last at a bank 5 years ago when I changed my card. The power of attorney, Victor said grimly. The same one you revoked today. He used it for more than just funeral blackmail. He's been taking out loans in your name for years. Victor pulled out his phone and called his lawyer. Half an hour later, they were sitting in the wrecked living room, and the lawyer, connected to databases via a tablet, recited terrifying figures. The total debt was $8 million, not counting penalties and fees. The loans had been taken out over the last 3 years. First from major banks, then, when her credit history was ruined, from small firms at crazy interest rates. Alicia sat, clutching her head. $8 million. She, a seamstress with a small salary, owed $8 million. Where? She whispered. Where did he put that money? We didn't buy anything. I wore the same old coat. We ate pasta. He said he was saving up for an apartment. At that moment, her phone, lying on the table, rang. An unknown number. Alicia hit answer. Alicia Dixon, a rough male voice said. Sequoia Collection Agency. Your husband, Blake Hayes, left your number as a contact. He's in hiding, and the debt is yours. When do you plan to pay? We have information about your workplace. We'll be coming there tomorrow, and we'll visit the neighbors, too. Alicia hung up. The phone immediately rang again. A different number, then another. The attack had begun. Blake hadn't just run away. He had thrown her into a pit of snakes. I'll settle everything, Victor said firmly. First thing tomorrow, my lawyers will contact all creditors. We'll pay off the debts. It's not a big amount for me. Alicia raised her eyes to him. Tears were there, but her gaze was hard. No. Allie, don't be foolish. They'll eat you alive. You don't have that kind of money. If you pay, I'll remain that same simpleton who has everything decided for her, she said, standing up. First my husband, now my uncle. I've been a victim all my life, Mr. Bell. I signed without looking. I tolerated it. I believed him. Enough. She walked to the window. The wind whipped the torn curtain. I need to understand where the money went. I need to find him. This is my fight. Victor looked at her with respect. All right. Let's look at the statements then. The lawyer already has access to the account movements. The lawyer turned the tablet screen toward them. Lines of transactions scrolled across the display. Look, cash withdrawals were rare, mostly transfers, regular, large amounts, 100,000, 200,000, $500,000, all to the same account. To whom? Alicia asked. The recipient is Savannah Arter Sterling. Alicia frowned. The name seemed vaguely familiar. Savannah? Savannah. That's his secretary, she remembered. He said she was just an assistant. A gray mouse, as he put it. The lawyer quickly typed the name into a search engine. I'd argue with the gray mouse part, he chuckled. He opened a social media page. Looking out from the screen was a luxurious brunette in furs, posing in front of the Eiffel Tower, expensive restaurants, and a beauty salon. Mila Beauty, the lawyer read, an elite beauty salon downtown. Opened 2 years ago. Owner, Savannah Sterling. Victor Bell whistled. That's where your $8 million went, Allie. Your husband wasn't gambling. He was building his mistress a business. With your money. Alicia stared at the photo. In one picture, taken at the salon's opening, Savannah was cutting a red ribbon, and in the background, in the shadow, stood Blake with a glass of champagne. He was smiling the way he never smiled at home, happy and proud. She zoomed in on the photo. Savannah was wearing a necklace, the very one Blake had supposedly been saving up for, showing Alicia pictures of it in a magazine and promising to give her for their anniversary. Sorry, baby, prices went up, didn't work out, he had said then. Rage, cold and calculated, finally ousted fear. Alicia took the tablet and looked at the salon's address. 10th Street, number 10, she read. What are you going to do? Victor asked. Alicia walked to the entryway mirror. It was cracked, but she saw her reflection, a pale face, a black dress, a hard gaze. I'm going there. I want to look that businesswoman in the eyes. I'm taking back what belongs to me. She turned to Victor. "Mr. Bell, I need your help, not with money. I need a good auditor, right now. We're going to that salon, not to make a scene. We're going to conduct an inspection of my investments." The auditor arrived an hour later. She was a stern woman in glasses with a folder of documents. Together with Victor and his security, they headed downtown. Mila Beauty Salon glittered with window displays. Marble, gold leaf, huge chandeliers. Everything screamed luxury, paid for by Alicia's tears. She pushed the heavy glass door and walked in. The receptionist at the front desk, seeing 2 bodyguards, paled and reached for a panic button. But Victor Bell shook his head. "I wouldn't advise it," he said calmly. "We're here for the owner." Savannah emerged from her office a minute later. She was even more striking than in the photo. Tall, well-groomed, in a silk dress that hugged her figure. Alicia froze. Savannah's stomach was noticeably rounded. 5th month at least. Savannah swept a contemptuous gaze over Alicia from head to toe, lingering on her simple black dress. "The lawful wife," she smirked, not showing an ounce of fear. "I thought you'd show up sooner. Blake said you were slow on the uptake. Where is he?" Alicia asked, trying to keep her voice steady. "No idea." Savannah shrugged and walked to a sofa, sinking heavily into it. "He ran away, the coward. Left me to deal with his mess. But it's okay. The baby and I will manage." She expressively stroked her belly. "Is it Blake's child?" Alicia asked hollowly. "Of course. We're a real family, Allie, not like you 2 strangers in one apartment. Blake loved me. He just used you." Alicia stepped forward. "This salon was bought with my money, with loans he took out in my name. I'm taking everything." Savannah laughed, loudly, offensively. "You won't take anything, Mouse. Look at you. You're a nobody. I have the best lawyers, and you know what we have on you?" She pulled a folder from a desk drawer and tossed it in front of Alicia. "Open it." Alicia opened it. The photo showed her, disheveled, red-faced, screaming, brandishing a knife in the kitchen. It was 6 months ago. Blake had driven her to hysterics with his constant nitpicking. She was cutting meat. He started yelling. She had turned around with the knife in her hand, crying. He had been recording. "Wife in a state of emotional distress, threatening her husband with murder," Savannah commented. "And there's also a video of you sleeping on the floor after taking tranquilizers, with bottles all around. Blake prepared everything. We'll prove you're mentally unstable, an alcoholic, and a danger to society. You'll be declared incompetent, and Blake will be appointed your guardian, which means all the inheritance from your rich uncle." She nodded toward Victor. "Will be under our control." Victor Bell stepped forward. His face was dark with anger. "Do you even know who you're talking to, girl?" he roared. "A former tycoon who couldn't find his sister for 30 years, Savannah snorted. "Your time is over, Grandpa. Now is the time of the young and the ruthless. Get out of my salon, or I'll call the police and show them these photos right now." Alicia felt her strength leaving her. They had thought of everything, every humiliation, every hysterical outburst. It had all been part of the plan. She silently turned around and walked out into the street. Victor caught up with her, trying to say something, to comfort her, promising to destroy Savannah through the courts, but Alicia didn't hear him. She needed a place where she could breathe. "Take me to Mom's," she asked, "to her old apartment." Victor drove her. He wanted to go up with her, but she asked him to leave her alone. She needed to say goodbye. Nina's apartment greeted her with silence and the smell of medicine. Everything was as it had been when her mother was alive. The old sofa, the wall tapestry, the Singer's sewing machine by the window. Alicia ran her hand along the back of a chair. This is where her mother sat in the evenings, sewing orders to help her and Blake with money, even though she herself barely scraped by. Alicia began packing things. Clothes into bags to donate to the church, books into boxes. She opened the closet and saw the old dressmaker's dummy, covered in worn fabric. Her mother called it Dolly. She modeled her best dresses on it. Alicia hugged the mannequin, pressing her cheek to the cold fabric, and wept. Tears flowed freely, washing away the last of her self-control. Suddenly, her fingers felt something hard beneath the mannequin's fabric near the neck. There was a seam, but it had come undone. Alicia pulled the thread. A small bundle was hidden inside the stuffing. She took it out. It was a thick notebook with a plastic cover. A diary. Alicia sat on the floor, right in the middle of the boxes, and opened the first page. Her mother's handwriting was even, neat. January 15th. Blake came again today, asking for money. He said Allie had a problem at work, needed to pay a fine. I gave him the last $500. Don't tell Allie, he asked. She'll be upset. Alicia turned the page. February 20th. Blake brought groceries. Strange, he never does that. Then he started talking about the cabin. Said, sell it, everything's rotting anyway. I said, no, it's a memory of your father, Allie's grandfather. We met there. March 10th. Blake screamed. He was frightening. Said I was an old fool, sitting on a gold mine. I didn't understand what he meant. My heart seized up. He didn't even get me water. He left, slamming the door. Alicia read, and a chill of horror gripped her body. Blake had been coming here regularly. He had been poisoning her mother's life for months. He pressured her while Alicia thought he was working late. She opened the last entry. The date was the day before her mother's death. The handwriting was shaky, uneven. The letters jumped as if her mother had written in a hurry, or felt very ill. April 12th. He was here again, brought me new heart pills. Said he bought expensive imported ones because he cares. I took one in front of him. I felt sick. My head spun, my chest burned like fire. He watched and smiled. He smiled strangely, like a wolf. When he went to the bathroom, I looked at the bottle. The label was glued over, crookedly. I saw him pouring something in the kitchen while I was looking for my glasses. God, he wants to kill me. I'm afraid to call Allie. He said if I made a peep, something would happen to her. If I die, my daughter, know this. It's not my heart. Check the blue bottle in the medicine cabinet. He swapped my pills. Alicia dropped the diary. A scream caught in her throat. This wasn't just theft, not just infidelity, not just fraud. It was murder. Blake had poisoned her mother. He had systematically, coldly, killed a person to seize the land for the highway construction. Alicia leaped to her feet and rushed into the bathroom. The medicine cabinet hung over the sink. She flung the door open. Medicines stood in rows. Tylenol, aspirin, bandages. She frantically went through the bottles. The blue bottle wasn't there. Empty. On the shelf, only a round dust mark remained where it had stood. Someone had been here after her mother's death. Someone had taken the evidence. Alicia looked in the mirror. Staring back at her from the depth of the glass was not a victim, not a tear-stained widow. Staring back was a daughter who had just learned she had lived under the same roof as her mother's killer. And that killer was free somewhere, planning to declare her insane and take everything else. You won't get anything, she whispered to her reflection. I will put you behind bars, even if I have to dig the earth with my bare hands. She grabbed the diary, shoved it into her purse, and ran out of the apartment. She needed Victor. This was no longer just a family drama. It was a war. Alicia ran out of the building, gripping the purse with the diary until her knuckles turned white. Victor Bell was waiting in the car. Seeing her face, he immediately understood something terrible had happened. "To the police!" she choked out, slamming the door. "Immediately. He killed her." The entire drive, she read the diary entries to Victor. His face hardened with every line. At the police precinct, they were met coldly. The duty detective, a young man with tired eyes, turned the old notebook over in his hands. "Ma'am, these are just writings," he sighed. "An elderly woman, heart problems, fantasy. Where is the evidence? Where is this blue bottle of yours?" "It's gone," Alicia nearly screamed. "He took it. He was there." "Who? Your husband?" The detective smirked. "Are there witnesses? Cameras?" "No." "The body is already buried. The autopsy showed heart failure, which is normal for her age and condition. To start a murder case and an exhumation, we need solid proof, not a diary. Maybe she mixed up the pills herself? Or are you, forgive me, fabricating this on an emotional basis to get back at your husband for infidelity? Alicia left the office, feeling helplessness tighten around her throat. The law was blind, and Blake was active. That same evening, Victor turned on the TV in the living room of his mansion. A local talk show, Chicago Speaks, was on the screen. Blake sat on a soft couch in the studio. He looked impeccable. A modest black suit, a tragic expression, slightly reddened eyes. "I just want my wife back," he said in a shaky voice, looking straight into the camera. "We had 10 happy years, and then this. This rich relative appeared. He turned her head with money, took her, hid her away in his castle. Allie is not herself right now. She's being influenced. She didn't even let me attend her mother's funeral. Can you believe it? Didn't let me say goodbye to my beloved mother-in-law." The host nodded sympathetically. "Is it true you were kicked out of your own home?" "It is true." Blake wiped away a non-existent tear. "I'm living with friends right now, but I won't give up. I love Allie. I'll save her from this golden cage." Then a special guest was invited to the studio. Donna Mae Hayes, Blake's mother, walked out, a small, frail woman in a shawl. She started sobbing from the first second. "My son, my saintly boy," she wailed. "He worked 2 jobs for that woman, for Alicia, and she's ungrateful. She drove her mother into the grave with her indifference, and now she wants to ruin her husband. Good people don't believe her. It's all that cursed money." Alicia watched the screen and felt a cold hatred boil inside her. Donna Mae, her mother-in-law, who had spent years criticizing her for every speck of dust, who came to their home with her own key and rearranged the pots. Wait. The key. Alicia froze. Donna Mae had a key to their apartment. But did she have a key to Nina's apartment? She remembered one incident. A year ago, her mother was hospitalized, and Alicia had asked her mother-in-law to water the plants while she kept vigil in the hospital room. She had given her a key ring, and Donna Mae only returned it a week later. "I forgot to give it back, sweetie. It was lost in my purse," she had said with a sweet smile. What if she had made a duplicate? What if she was the one who took the bottle? Blake was a coward. He might have been afraid to go back to the crime scene, knowing Alicia might be there. But his mother? A mother would do anything for her son. "I need to meet with her," Alicia said, turning off the TV. "With that actress?" Victor was surprised. "Yes, she knows more than she's letting on, and she's greedy." The next day, Alicia called her mother-in-law. Donna Mae's voice on the phone dripped venom. "What do you want, Judas? Did your conscience finally wake up?" "Donna Mae, I want peace," Alicia said firmly. "I saw the show. I'm tired of fighting. I have a proposal about the inheritance. I'm willing to give Blake a portion of the land money if you stop this circus in the press." A pause hung on the other end. Greed fought with hatred. "Come to my place," her mother-in-law grumbled. "Blake isn't here. He's meeting with lawyers. We'll talk." Alicia went alone. Victor was against it, but she insisted. She hid her phone with the voice recorder on in the inner pocket of her coat. The mother-in-law's apartment smelled of Valium and old dust. Donna Mae met her in a robe with a shawl carelessly draped over her shoulders. She led Alicia into the kitchen, not even offering her tea. "Well," she said, sitting at the table, crossing her arms, "how much will you give?" $500,000, Alicia lied. "But I need guarantees." The old woman's eyes glinted greedily. $500,000. It's not enough. The land is worth $4 million. Blake will get $500,000 or nothing. I can drag the lawsuits out for years. Donna Mae scoffed. "Fine. What do you want?" "I want to know the truth." Alicia leaned forward. "About the pills." The mother-in-law's face didn't flinch. She was a hardened case. "What pills?" "You're delusional, dear, just like your mother before she died." "I know Blake switched them," Alicia bluffed. "I know you took the bottle. I have video from the hallway camera. You entered Mom's apartment the day after she died." It was a lie. There were no cameras in her mother's building, but Alicia prayed the fear would work. Donna Mae went pale. Her eyes darted around. She clutched her heart. This time, it seemed real. You're lying. There are no cameras there. There are. A neighbor installed a smart doorbell with recording. I have the video. If I take it to the police along with Mom's diary, Blake will go to jail for murder. And you, as an accomplice, for tampering with evidence? The mother-in-law began to tremble. I didn't know anything, she shrieked. He just asked me to go in and pick up something. Said the medicine was expensive, ashamed to throw away. I didn't know what he did. I just took the bag and threw it in the trash. You threw it away. Alicia's heart sank. The evidence was destroyed. Yes, in the dumpster by the house. How was I supposed to know? She started to sob. He's my son. He said it was for a deal, that you wanted to ruin him. Alicia realized there would be no confession of murder. The old woman would deny knowing anything. But Alicia needed something to hit Blake with, something that would destroy his alliance with Savannah. Fine, Alicia said, changing tactics. Let's say I believe you. But tell me one thing. Why all this? He has Savannah now. A child is coming. A new family. And then, Donna Mae's face contorted. The malice she had been hoarding suddenly found an outlet. She hated Savannah even more than Alicia. Family, she snorted. What family? That bleach-blonde gold digger? She's milking him like a cow. A child? Psh! What's wrong with the child? Alicia grew alert. The mother-in-law suddenly went silent. She realized she had said too much, but Alicia had already latched onto that thread. Donna Mae, if you stay silent now, I go to the police with the video. Blake goes to jail, and Savannah takes all the money he stole from me and lives a life of luxury with another man. Is that what you want? Your son rotting in jail while that tramp lives high on the hog? It was a blow to the most sensitive spot, a mother's jealousy of her son's mistress. She's lying to him, Donna Mae whispered viciously, lying to his face. About what? About the baby. It's not his child. Alicia froze. How do you know? Donna Mae stood up, walked to the old china cabinet, and pulled a yellowed medical chart from the depths. Blake was sick as a child. Seriously sick. Mumps with complications. The doctors said then, he'll never have children. I didn't tell him. Why upset the boy? I thought maybe a miracle would happen. But when that flirt showed up pregnant after 2 months of dating, I knew immediately. She got pregnant by someone else and is spinning a yarn for Blake so he'll open salons for her. Alicia looked at the chart in the mother-in-law's hands. This was a bomb. Blake didn't know he was infertile. He robbed his wife, killed his mother-in-law, and ruined his life for an heir who wasn't even his. Give me the chart, Alicia said. Why? The old woman pressed the folder to her chest. To save your son from that scam artist. You want that, don't you? To open his eyes. Donna Mae hesitated for a second. Then a vengeful smile twisted her face. She handed the chart to Alicia. Take it. Let him find out what kind of snake he's embraced. Just about the video. You will delete it, right? Of course, Alicia nodded, hiding the chart in her purse next to the phone that had recorded every word. As soon as we're finished with Savannah. She walked out of the mother-in-law's apartment. Her legs were shaky, but a strange, malicious triumph filled her soul. She still didn't have the evidence for murder, but she held a weapon capable of blowing up their happy family from the inside. And when they started tearing each other apart, the truth would surface on its own. The next morning, Alicia called Blake. I'm ready to negotiate, she said dryly. No more shows. Meet me at noon in the Plaza Hotel conference room. Bring Savannah. This concerns her too. Oh, so you gave up? Blake's voice was smug. Realized you're nothing without me. Fine, we'll be there. Get your uncle's checkbook ready. The plaza was neutral territory. Victor Bell had rented a small negotiation room. He sat at the head of the table, grim and silent as a rock. Alicia was on his right. Before her lay only a thin folder. Precisely at 12, the door flew open. Blake walked in, shining like a new penny, and behind him, clicking her heels, floated Savannah. She wore a white dress that emphasized her belly and a new fur coat. They sat opposite them, demonstratively holding hands. "Well, relatives?" Blake began, sprawling in his chair. "Let's get straight to business. My terms are simple. 50% of Bell's company stock is transferred to me, plus $20 million in compensation for emotional distress. And fine, I'll grant Ali a divorce and forget about the apartment." Victor Bell didn't even blink. He slowly shifted his gaze to Alicia. "Your turn," he said quietly. Alicia picked up the folder. Her hands were not shaking. The fear was gone. Only cold contempt remained. "Blake, do you really think you're in a position to set terms?" she asked. "Me? Of course," he laughed. "I have all the leverage, public opinion, video of your hysterics, a pregnant wife. By the way, meet the future heir." He nodded toward Savannah's belly. "He's my son, something you couldn't give me." Savannah stroked her belly and smiled her predatory smile. "Yes, Allie, we're having a boy, a true Hayes." Alicia silently opened the folder, took out a single sheet, a copy of the doctor's findings from Blake's childhood medical chart, an old yellowed form with the blue stamp of a Soviet-era clinic. She pushed the sheet across the polished table. The paper slid across the varnish and stopped right in front of Blake. "What is this?" He frowned, reluctantly picking up the sheet. "Read," Alicia said. "Diagnosis: epidemic parotitis, complicated by bilateral orchitis. Urologist's conclusion: complete azoospermia, irreversible infertility." Silence hung in the room. They could hear the air conditioner running. Blake read. His lips moved. He reread the lines over and over as if they were written in a foreign language. This is nonsense," he whispered, raising completely white eyes to Alicia. "This is a fake. Mom would never—" "Mom knew," Alicia interrupted. "She hid it from you for 30 years so as not to traumatize her beloved son. But yesterday, she gave me the chart." Blake slowly turned his head to Savannah. She sat frozen, like a wax doll. The smile had slid from her face, leaving a mask of horror. "You knew?" Blake asked. His voice was quiet, terrifying. "Blake, it's a mistake," Savannah stammered, inching away from him. "Doctors make mistakes. Now medicine is different." "I'm infertile!" he roared, jumping up and slamming his fist on the table, making the water carafe jump. "I can't have children since childhood. Whose bastard is this?" He grabbed Savannah by the shoulder. She shrieked. "Whose? Tell me!" "Let go! You're hurting me!" she screamed, trying to pull away. "It's not yours, not yours! Happy? You're a poor failure. Where would you get money for a child?" Blake recoiled as if he had been slapped. I for you. I did everything for you. I took out loans. I opened a salon for you. I even—" He choked. Savannah, realizing she had nothing to lose, went on the offensive. Her face twisted into a grimace of hatred. "What did you do? Hung loans on your wife, big hero, and you're nothing but a zero. I thought you would get the inheritance. I thought you were smart, but you're just a pathetic little wimp who can't even kill properly." The room became so quiet that the air seemed to ring. Victor Bell leaned forward. "What did you say?" he asked in an icy tone. Blake turned even paler. "Shut up!" he hissed at Savannah. "Shut up right now!" But Savannah was beyond control. Hysteria, mixed with disappointment and the fear of ending up with nothing, broke the dam. "Why should I shut up?" she shrieked, pointing her finger at Blake. "You promised me the world. The old hag will die, we'll sell the land, and we'll be rich. And now what? I'm pregnant, no money. The salon will be seized for your debts. And for what did I put up with your whining?" "Where is the blue bottle?" Alicia asked loudly, standing up. Blake lunged toward Savannah, trying to cover her mouth with his hand, but Victor Bell was already there. He grabbed Blake's arm and twisted it behind his back with force. Blake howled and buried his face in the table. "Speak!" Victor roared at Savannah. "Where's the evidence, or will you go down as an accomplice in group murder? You'll have to give birth in prison." Savannah shook. All her arrogance vanished. She was just a frightened, greedy girl who had overplayed her hand. I didn't kill her. He did. He planned everything. Where are the pills? Alicia pressed. Donna Mae said she threw them away. Is that true? No, Savannah screamed. She's lying. They're all lying. Blake didn't throw them away. He's a paranoid. He kept them to blackmail the pharmacist. What pharmacist? Victor asked. Blake choked under his grip. Shut up, you fool. I'll kill the pharmacist who sold him that poison without a prescription. Savannah was giving up everyone to save her own skin. He hid the bottle in the garage in an old winter tire. He said, "If that old man tries to rat me out, I'll show the bottle with his fingerprints on it." Who sold him the medicine? Alicia walked up to Savannah. The name? Savannah sniffled. Uncle Ray, Raymond Hayes, Blake's uncle. Alicia froze. Raymond Hayes, Donna Mae's brother, Blake's uncle. He works as a pharmacist at the pharmacy on 10th Street, Savannah continued, smearing mascara down her cheeks. Blake went to him, said his mother-in-law needed strong pills but had no prescription. Uncle Ray gave them to him. He knew it wasn't the right medicine. He knew that if you mixed it with her usual pills, her heart would stop. Alicia felt the floor giving way beneath her. This was not just a tyrannical husband. It was a family conspiracy, mother, son, and uncle, an entire clan that had conspired to murder her mother for a piece of land. Blake promised Uncle Ray, Savannah rattled on, $50,000 for the vitamins. Victor Bell lifted Blake off the chair with a jerk. Your uncle, you say? He roared into his face. Family business. Blake remained silent. His eyes darted around like a cornered rat. Call the police chief, Victor threw at Alicia, and tell them to send a squad to the North Garage Cooperative. We're going for the winter tires. Savannah collapsed onto the chair and covered her face with her hands. And me, she whimpered. Will I be okay? I told you everything. Alicia looked at her, at the expensive manicure, at the belly holding a stranger's child, which had become a bargaining chip in this dirty game. Pray the baby is born healthy, she said. He's already unlucky enough to have you as a mother. They left the room, dragging Blake, who didn't resist. He was broken not by the arrest, not by the exposure, but by the fact that the heir he had committed murder for turned out to be a phantom. His masculine ego was destroyed, and that hurt more than handcuffs. But for Alicia, everything was just beginning. Now she had to find the bottle and look Uncle Ray in the eye. The operational team moved lightning fast. Victor Bell mobilized all his old connections, and within an hour, the pharmacy on 10th Street was cordoned off. Raymond Hayes, Uncle Ray, was arrested right behind the counter. He didn't even have time to take off his white coat. During the search of the back room, they found not only unregistered drugs, but also a black ledger. Among the notes about selling codeine syrup to addicts was a line, BS Special Order, 11.4, 50K advance. The date matched, and the initials did too. But while the police were drafting reports and heading to the garage for the bottle, Blake disappeared. In the commotion, as he was being escorted out of the hotel on bail, the detective not yet having an arrest warrant, only Savannah's testimony, which needed verification, he managed to escape. He asked to use the restroom, climbed out of a narrow back window, and melted into the city. 2 hours later, a notification arrived on Alicia's phone from her bank. Debit $3,500. Balance $. This was the last of the money, the remains of her mother's savings, which Alicia had transferred to a secure account. An account Blake, it turned out, also had access to via hacked online banking. He cleaned out everything, she told Victor, looking at the screen. I don't have a dime left, not even for bread. That's not a problem. Victor was already pulling out his wallet. I'll give you whatever you need and you'll come stay with me. The apartment is unsafe. He's free. No, Alicia cut him off. She stood in the wind outside the pharmacy, clutching her thin coat. I'm not going to your castle, Mr. Bell. I'm not going to hide. This is my apartment, my life. If I run now, he wins. He'll think I'm afraid. You should be afraid, Victor raised his voice. He's a cornered animal. So am I, she replied quietly, and I have teeth too. She returned to the ransacked apartment. It was freezing. Blake, either in a fit of rage or to force her out, had shut off the radiator valves and broken them, making it impossible to turn the heat back on without tools. It was 20 degrees Fahrenheit outside, and barely 40 degrees inside. Alicia didn't cry. The tears were gone. She put on 2 sweaters and wool socks and lit the gas stove in the kitchen to warm herself a little. She took her mother's diary from her purse, but not to read about the pills. She opened it from the back where the sketches were. Her mother drew dresses, not the dreary housecoats she sewed for neighbors. She drew true beauty. Flowing silhouettes, strict lines, unusual collars. A collection for my Ollie was written in the margins. Alicia walked to the sewing machine. The old Singer was the only thing Blake hadn't been able to take. Too heavy. Fabrics. There were none. Blake had taken all the stockpiles of expensive silk and wool her mother had saved for years. Alicia looked around. In the corner lay the old curtains Blake had ripped down. Thick, heavy velvet the color of dark wine. On the floor, his abandoned shirt made of good cotton. "Fine," she said aloud. "We'll sew with what we have, with the fragments." She sat at the machine. Her hands remembered the motion. The scissors cut the fabric with a hungry crunch. She cut not by the rules, but by intuition. The curtain was turning into a skirt of complex cut, her husband's shirt into a corset with rigid inserts. She sewed all night. The cold bit her fingers, but she didn't stop. This was her therapy, her revenge. Every stitch was like a nail in the coffin of their marriage. By morning, the dress was ready. It was strange, gothic, but stunningly beautiful. A phoenix dress, risen from the ashes and the dirt. Alicia put it on, let down her hair, stood before the cracked mirror, turned on her phone camera, and launched a live stream on social media. She had few subscribers, a couple dozen acquaintances, but she titled the stream, "How My Husband Stole $8 Million, Killed My Mother, and Left Me to Freeze My Confession." "Hi," she said into the camera. "My name is Allie, and this dress was sewn from the curtains my husband ripped down when he vandalized the apartment." She began to tell the story calmly, without hysterics. She showed the apartment, the ripped-out sockets, the icy radiators, the empty refrigerator. She showed her mother's sketches. "He thought he could break me by taking the money, but he didn't know that my inheritance is poverty. It's these hands and this talent my mother gave me." People started joining. First 10, then 100. Someone shared the post. The story began to spread. Comments poured in like a waterfall. "Stay strong. How awful. Where is he?" By noon, thousands were watching the stream. People started sending Alicia donations for food, a heater, and a lawyer. Victor called her. "Are you crazy? You're provoking him." "I'm making him famous," she replied. "Now not only the police, but the entire internet is looking for him." And it worked. An hour later, a comment appeared. "I saw him an hour ago. Cozy motel on the highway, mile marker 50. Red Toyota. The plates were covered in mud. He was buying gas in a jerry can at the nearby station." Alicia relayed the information to Victor. He sent his people, but Blake was already gone from the motel. The clerk said the guest had been acting strangely, twitchy, constantly checking his phone, and then he saw Alicia's stream. Someone on staff was watching it at the front desk. "He went white," the clerk said. "He saw her showing the apartment and people writing messages of support. He hissed something like, 'She's even cashing in on this,' grabbed the jerry can and drove off." "Where to?" Victor asked on the phone. "Towards the city." Alicia sat by the machine, reading the comments. She was warm, not from radiators, but from human support. She felt strong. Suddenly the doorbell rang. She flinched. "Who is it? The police? Victor?" She went to the peephole. Darkness. The light on the landing was out. Either burned out or someone had unscrewed it. "Who's there?" she asked. Silence. Then a rustling sound. A strange gurgling sound, like someone pouring water on the floor. Alicia sniffed. A sharp, pungent odor hit her nose. Gasoline. Her heart stopped. She heard the click of a lighter. "Allie." Blake's voice from behind the door was drunk and cheerful. "I watched your stream. Cool dress. Too bad it's synthetic. It'll go up fast." "Blake, don't do this," she screamed, backing away from the door. "You wanted fame," he yelled. "You wanted to burn me in front of the whole world? Then burn yourself along with your rags and that damn diary." A sharp whoosh. A snake of fire crawled under the door. The old linoleum in the entryway ignited instantly. The wooden door, covered in imitation leather, went up like a torch. Alicia scrambled back into the room. The exit was cut off. Fire greedily licked the walls, devouring the wallpaper. Smoke already filled the hallway in black clouds. She grabbed the diary and her phone and ran to the window. 5th floor. Below, concrete and ice. The door to the room began to char. Blake hadn't run away. He was standing there behind the door laughing. He hadn't just come to scare her. He had come to finish what he started with her mother. Destroy the witness and the evidence in one blow. Smoke poured out from under the door in thick black plumes, instantly filling the entryway. The smell of gasoline was so sharp that Alicia's eyes immediately welled up. She coughed, covering her mouth with the sleeve of her strange curtain-sewn dress. "Burn, witch, burn!" Blake's drunken, hysterical scream came from behind the door, drowned out by the crackling of the raging flames. Alicia darted to the door, but immediately jumped back. The metal handle was red hot, and the paint on the doorframe was bubbling. The way back was cut off. The fire roared like a living creature, devouring the old, fuel-soaked linoleum. The flame licked the coat rack, and the coats went up like matches. It became impossible to breathe in the apartment. Heat rolled in waves, mixing with the icy cold coming from the broken window, but the fire was winning. Alicia grabbed the most valuable things from the table, her mother's diary and her phone. There was nothing else to save. The Singer sewing machine was too heavy. The fabrics were already alight. She rushed to the window she herself had broken with a chair. She leaned out. 5th floor. Below was a concrete courtyard, covered in an icy crust and dirty snow. The wind hit her face, stinging her skin with frost, but the danger behind her was worse. "Help!" she screamed, leaning over the windowsill. People were already gathering in the courtyard. Neighbors ran out of the building in robes and hastily donned coats. Someone pointed a finger at her window. "Jump onto the balcony awning," a man below yelled, waving his arms. 4th floor. The balcony was enclosed, but there was a roof. Alicia looked down. The awning of the balcony on the floor below was narrow, sloped, and icy. One wrong move, and she would fall onto the asphalt. Something crashed with a roar in the room behind her. A closet, she thought. Tongues of flame were already dancing on the ceiling, reaching for the chandelier. Breathing became impossible. Alicia realized she would either break her neck or burn alive. She swung a leg over the windowsill. A sharp shard of glass sticking out of the frame sliced her calf, but she didn't even feel the pain. Adrenaline numbed everything. She stood on the outer sill, gripping the brickwork of the wall with whitened fingers. The wind tore at the hem of her long velvet dress, trying to throw her down. She took a breath, squeezed her eyes shut, and released her grip, sliding down. The impact was hard. She landed on the metal roof of the 4th floor balcony. Her feet slipped on the ice. She fell onto her side, hitting her hip painfully, and rolled towards the edge. Her fingers frantically scratched the smooth metal, trying to find any hold. At the last moment, when her feet were already dangling into the void, her hand hit a metal railing rod. She clung to it with a death grip. Screaming sirens wailed in the distance. A red fire truck skidded into the courtyard, crushing snowdrifts and pushing parked cars aside. "Ladder up! Quick!" a voice commanded over a megaphone. It seemed like an eternity before the strong hands of a firefighter in a canvas suit grabbed her and hauled her into the basket of the aerial platform. As soon as her feet touched solid ground, paramedics rushed to her. They draped a thermal blanket over her, started asking questions, checking her blood pressure, but Alicia didn't hear them. She was looking at the building entrance. 2 police officers were dragging someone toward a patrol car. It was Blake. He wasn't running or hiding. He looked completely insane. His face was smeared with soot. His jacket was open. Despite the frost, he was laughing, throwing his head back, and that laughter was more terrifying than the fire itself. "Burn, baby, burn," he screamed, spitting. "So it doesn't go out. No apartment, no evidence, no diary, no jail. I solved everything. I'm a genius." A police officer forcefully pushed his head down, shoving him into the back seat. "That's my wife in there," Blake continued to wail as the door slammed shut. "I warmed her up. She was cold without heat. I'm a good husband." Alicia met his gaze through the glass. There was not a trace of remorse in his eyes, only the wild animal excitement of destruction. He saw her, alive, wrapped in the foil blanket, his face contorted into a grimace of disappointment and hatred. He struggled in the car, trying to kick out the window with his feet until the police subdued him with a baton. Victor Bell arrived 20 minutes later. He found Alicia in the ambulance. She sat clutching the saved, smoke-smelling diary in her hands. "Are you all right?" he asked, his voice trembling. "I'm fine," she said quietly. "But he's a finished man?" "He's arrested," Victor said sharply. "Attempted murder, arson, destruction of property. He won't get out of this now." But they underestimated Blake, or rather, his ability to survive at the expense of others. 3 days passed. Alicia was living in a small downtown apartment Victor had rented for her temporarily. She refused to go to his mansion, wanting to maintain some independence, but agreed to a security guard at the door. The news Victor brought was disheartening. "He has a lawyer," her uncle said, tossing a folder of documents onto the table, "and not just some public defender. He's being defended by Marcus Solomon, the most expensive and unscrupulous lawyer in the district." "How?" Alicia was surprised. "Blake has no money. I blocked all his accounts, and what he stole, he spent on Savannah and debts." "That's the thing. He found money, a lot of money." Victor rubbed the bridge of his nose. "Solomon doesn't take cases without a gigantic retainer. But where?" "His mother's." Alicia froze with a cup of tea in her hand. "Donna May. But she complained she was a poor pensioner." She was lying. She had savings, old caches, gold, antiques, family jewelry she hid in a bank vault and at home in secret spots. Blake, before he drove off to burn your apartment, stopped by her place. Victor opened the folder and showed a police report. He gave his mother tea with a sleeping pill. While she slept, he cleaned her out, cracked the safe, took the keys to the vault, emptied everything, and immediately took it to a pawn shop. He handed the money over to the lawyer. He robbed his own mother. Alicia couldn't believe such depravity. And now that strategy is working. The lawyer has already filed a motion. They're not denying the arson. They're arguing insanity. Victor turned on a tablet. The screen showed a recording of the lawyer's press conference. A polished man in an expensive suit spoke into reporters' microphones. "My client, Blake Hayes, is a victim of circumstances. Prolonged stress, financial collapse, the death of his beloved mother-in-law, the infidelity of his wife who ran off with a rich relative. His psyche couldn't handle it. This was a nervous breakdown, a state of temporary insanity. He didn't know what he was doing. He's not a criminal. He's a sick man who needs help, not prison. We will demand compulsory treatment in a clinic." Alicia squeezed her fists. "A clinic. 6 months later, he'll walk out with a clean bill of health and be free." "Exactly," Victor nodded. "And the worst part is, they have a chance. An expert opinion can be bought, and Solomon knows how to work with judges. We need irrefutable proof that he planned the crime in advance, that he is cold-blooded and calculating. Mom's diary isn't enough. The lawyer will say it's the ravings of a sick woman. Savannah's testimony isn't enough either. She's an interested party, a jilted mistress." The doorbell rang. Victor's bodyguard looked into the room. "Ms. Dixon, you have a visitor. A woman. Says she's your mother-in-law." Alicia and Victor exchanged glances. "Let her in," Alicia said. Donna May walked into the room, and Alicia didn't recognize her. This was not the arrogant lady who taught her how to make chili, nor the frightened woman Alicia had spoken to a couple of days ago. Standing before her was a destitute old woman. She was wearing an old, worn coat with a nightgown visible underneath. Her feet were in scuffed boots. Her face was gray, swollen from crying. Her hair was a mess. She stopped in the middle of the room, not daring to look up. "Allie," she croaked. "Why did you come?" Alicia asked, not getting up from her armchair. Donna Mae suddenly collapsed onto her knees, right onto the floor, hitting them against the parquet. "Save me," she wailed. "Save me, for heaven's sake! He took everything, everything!" She crawled toward Alicia, extending her trembling hands. "I woke up and the house was empty. The safe was open. The jewelry box was gone. He even took my wedding ring off my finger while I was asleep. I went to the bank. The vault is empty. He left me naked. I don't have money to buy bread. The marshal sealed the apartment because of his debts. I was the co-signer. They threw me out onto the street." Alicia looked at her with disgust and pity. "You came to ask for money?" "I came to beg for forgiveness," the mother-in-law cried, grasping the hem of Alicia's dress. "I was a fool. I thought he loved me. I protected him. I lived for him, and he stepped over me like garbage. Ali, he's a monster." "I know," Alicia answered coldly. "I told you that, but you chose his side. You gave him an alibi. You lied to the police." "I'll fix everything!" Donna Mae screamed. "I'll tell everything. I'll go to court. I'll say he's not crazy. He planned everything. He discussed with me how best to frame you. He laughed when he poisoned your mother. He's sane, Allie. He's just the devil. I'll testify. I'll drown him. Just don't abandon me. Give me a place to sleep. Give me a dime. I'll die on the street." Victor Bell, standing by the window, chuckled. "A witness for the prosecution who will sell her own son for a bowl of soup. That's a valuable asset." Alicia remained silent. She looked at the woman who had turned 10 years of her life into hell, who had called her barren, even though she knew the problem was with her son, who came into their home and rearranged things, demonstrating her power. Now that power lay at her feet, smearing mascara down her cheeks. "Fine," Alicia said. "I'll help you. I won't let you die of hunger." Donna Mae lifted her head, and a greedy spark flickered in her eyes. Thank you, my daughter. I knew you were kind. You're not like him. How much? How much will you give me? I need to rent a little apartment at least, and money for food, and a new coat." "I'll give you a future," Alicia interrupted her, "but I have conditions." "Anything. I'll sign any papers." "The papers come later. First, repentance." Alicia stood up and walked toward her mother-in-law. "We are going to the cemetery to see Mom right now. Victor Bell will take a camera. You will stand before her grave and apologize. You will tell everything. How you knew about the pills, how you helped your son hide the evidence, how you hated us. You will say this not to me, but to her, the dead woman." Donna Mae shook. "On camera? But everyone will see. My friends, my neighbors." "You no longer have friends or neighbors," Alicia said sharply. "You only have a choice. Either you do this, and I ensure your life, or you walk out into the cold right now, and I won't lift a finger when you freeze to death in an alleyway." "I agree," the old woman whispered, bowing her head. The drive to the cemetery was silent. Donna Mae huddled in the corner of the leather car seat, teeth chattering. Alicia stared out the window at the gray city. There was no gloating in her, only the cold necessity of completing a task. It was windy at the cemetery. Nina Dixon's fresh grave mound was dusted with snow. The wooden cross stood crookedly. The earth had settled. Victor turned on his phone camera. "Get on your knees," Alicia commanded. Donna Mae plopped into the snow. She didn't care. She was cold and terrified. "Speak." Nina Dixon," she whined, looking at the photo on the cross. "Forgive me, you wretched soul. I am guilty before you. I knew Blake wanted you gone. He told me, 'Mom, we need to get rid of the old lady. The land is valuable.' And I kept silent. I thought, let us have the money. We need it more." "I knew about the pills," Donna Mae cried, choking on her tears. "He came to me, boasted, said, 'Uncle Ray gave me the poison. Tomorrow it will all be over.' I didn't stop him, I was even glad. Lord, forgive me. I raised a monster. He is sane. He understood everything. He is a calculating snake. Lock him up for life. She beat her forehead against the frozen ground, spilling out all the filth she had hoarded for years. It was a perfect recording, the confession of an accomplice that destroyed any defense based on insanity. With those words, Blake would go to a maximum security prison for 15 years, not a resort-like clinic. When she finished, Victor turned off the recording. "That's enough," he said. Donna Mae struggled to her feet, brushing off her wet knees. She looked at Alicia with a fawning, pathetic smile. "Well, I did everything, Allie. I unburdened my soul. Now let's go somewhere warm. You mentioned money. I need about $50,000 to start, for a place to live and food, and a new coat." Alicia silently opened her purse. Her mother-in-law's eyes lit up with greedy fire. She was already imagining buying food, renting a hotel room, maybe even retrieving earrings from the pawn shop. Alicia pulled out a white envelope. Donna Mae snatched it with trembling hands. It was thin, too thin for a stack of cash. "A check?" she asked hopefully. "You wrote a check?" She tore the envelope open. Inside was a bus ticket. Donna Mae froze. She held the paper up to her eyes, squinting. "Bus terminal, Upper Vasaki Village," she read out loud. "Departure today at 6 o'clock sharp." She raised her eyes to Alicia. "What is this?" "That is your future, Donna Mae," Alicia answered calmly. "As I promised you, I won't let you die on the street. Upper Vasaki is 300 miles from here. My great-grandmother's old house is there. It's been empty for 5 years, but the walls are sturdy. It has a stove, firewood in the shed, and a well in the yard." "A village," the mother-in-law whispered, paling. "The sticks! No indoor plumbing! A roof over my head! What about the money?" she shrieked. "You promised to provide for me." "I provided you with housing." Alicia's voice was as hard as steel. "I didn't promise you money. Not a dime. You don't deserve it. You drank my blood for years. You helped kill my mother. You betrayed me. You even betrayed your own son when he ceased to be profitable to you." "I won't go." Donna Mae threw the ticket into the snow. "I won't survive there. I'm a city woman. Give me money. You owe me. You're rich now." "Pick up the ticket," Alicia said. "It's your only chance. The bus leaves in 2 hours." "You monster!" Donna Mae screamed, lunging at her with her fists. "You tricked me!" Victor Bell intercepted her arm, preventing her from touching Alicia. "Calm down, ma'am," he said. "You have a choice. Either you take the ticket and go atone for your sins in the sticks, or I hand this recording over to the prosecutor right now, and you go down as an accomplice in premeditated murder. That's 8 to 20 years. Believe me, the conditions in prison are worse than in a village with a wood stove." Donna Mae went limp. She understood. The trap had sprung. She had talked her way into a sentence, and now her freedom depended only on the mercy of this woman she had so despised. Slowly sobbing, she sank into the snow and picked up the ticket. "May you be cursed," she hissed, looking up at Alicia. "The bus station is that way." Alicia pointed toward the cemetery gates. "It's a good walk. It'll be healthy for you." She turned and walked to the car. The wind billowed the hem of her coat. She felt no pity, only vast relief. The last thread connecting her to the past was cut. "To the courthouse," she told Victor, getting into the car. "Now we have everything we need to destroy Blake." The car pulled away, leaving the lonely figure of the old woman in the middle of the cemetery lane. Snow began to fall harder, covering her tracks. 6 months later, the courthouse was surrounded by reporters. This case had become the city's biggest trial of the year, the Black Widower case, as the newspapers had dubbed it. Alicia stepped out of Victor Bell's car. Camera flashes blinded her, but she didn't even blink. She wore a deep burgundy pantsuit, tailored to her own design. Perfect cut, sharp shoulder lines, a high collar. She no longer looked like a victim. She looked like a queen walking toward her coronation. The courtroom was packed. When Blake was brought in, a whisper went through the rows. He had lost a lot of weight during his months in custody. Gaunt, thin, with dark circles under his eyes. His expensive suit hung on him like a sack. He scanned the room with a hunted look, searching for support, but saw only cold faces. Savannah wasn't there. She had left the city the day after the scandal, realizing there would be no money. His mother wasn't there either. She was stuck in a remote village without communication. Alicia stood at the witness stand. "Alicia Dixon, tell the court what happened," the prosecutor requested. She spoke for an hour and a half. Her voice was even, calm, without hysterics or tears. Every word hammered a nail into Blake's defense. She presented her mother's diary, reading the lines written in a trembling hand about the pills being swapped. She laid out the bank statements, showing transfers to Savannah's accounts and the loans taken out with the forged power of attorney. She showed the video recording of the fire, where Blake laughed in front of the burning door. And finally, the main card was played. The video recording from the cemetery, Donna Mae Hayes' confession. A dead silence fell over the room as the words of the defendant's mother sounded from the screen. "He's sane. He's a calculating snake. He planned the murder." Blake, in the holding cage, covered his face with his hands. His lawyer, Marcus Solomon, sat with a stone face, realizing he hadn't managed to earn his fee. The theory of temporary insanity crumbled into dust. "Defendant, do you have anything to say?" the judge asked. Blake lifted his head. Tears of malice were in his eyes. "It's all her!" he screamed, pointing a finger at Alicia. "She orchestrated everything. She's a witch. She turned my mother against me. She stole my life." The judge struck his gavel. "The verdict will be announced now. 15 years, maximum security, with full confiscation of assets toward debt repayment and compensation for the victims." As the guards escorted Blake out, he tried to spit toward Alicia, but missed. His spittle landed on a guard's boot, for which he immediately received a poke to the ribs with a baton. Alicia watched without emotion. She felt no joy, only exhaustion and the understanding that the page had been turned. After the trial, Victor Bell invited her to a restaurant. "Allie, I'm proud of you," he said, raising a glass. "You went through hell and came out victorious. I have a proposal for you. I want you to become the creative director of my holding company. We have a textile division, but it's failing. I need a person with your taste and character. Name your salary." Alicia smiled. 6 months ago, she would have fainted from such an offer, but now... "Thank you, Uncle Victor, but I must decline." "Why?" He was surprised. "I don't want to work for anyone, not even you. I want to build my own." "And what will you do?" "I'll restore the apartment, the one Blake burned down, and open my own atelier there. I'll call it Nina, in Mom's honor." Victor looked at her with respect. "Good. The money from the land sale for the highway is already in your account. That's your startup capital. Go for it." Another month passed. Renovations in the burned apartment were underway 24 hours a day. Alicia chose the paint herself, drew the floor plan herself. The smell of smoke vanished, replaced by the scent of fresh wood and varnish. But there was one piece of unfinished business. On the day of the atelier's grand opening, Alicia got into the car and drove not downtown, but out of the city, to Correctional Facility Number 5. The visitation room smelled of bleach and tobacco. Blake was brought in 10 minutes later. He was clean-shaven, in a gray uniform with a tag on his chest. He sat opposite her through the glass and picked up the phone receiver. "Did you come to gloat?" he asked hoarsely. "To see me rotting in here, like what you see?" Alicia looked at him and tried to find the man she had loved for 10 years, but she couldn't. Sitting before her was an angry, unrecognizable stranger. "No, Blake. I came to repay my debts." "Debts?" He smirked crookedly. "You owe me half a life." Alicia took a folder from her purse and held it against the glass. "First, the divorce decree. We were automatically divorced without your consent, by court order. You are a free man, legally." Blake spat on the floor. "Second," Alicia pulled out another sheet. It was a bill, an ordinary restaurant bill, handwritten on a blank form with the Nina's logo. "What is this?" Blake squinted. "Remember that dinner, 6 months ago, when you made me cook a duck and serve your boss on the day my mother died?" Blake's eyes widened. You're serious?" "Absolutely. I calculated everything. Groceries, rental of the premises, and most importantly, the services of the waitress and chef, at double the rate for working on a day of mourning plus emotional damage. Total, $50,000. She slipped the sheet through the slot under the glass. "I deducted this amount from the money left over from the sale of your car at the Marshall's auction, so we're even." Blake stared at the paper, and his face began to turn red. "You're sick!" he yelled, slamming his fist on the glass. "You're crazy! $50,000 for a dinner? Time's up, inmate!" the guard roared, grabbing his shoulder. Blake struggled, continuing to shout curses, but Alicia had already hung up the phone. She stood up, adjusted the impeccable collar of her coat, and turned to the exit. "Hey, 142!" the guard yelled at Blake. "Hands behind your back! Move to the cell!" He no longer had a name. Alicia walked outside. The sun blinded her eyes. She got into the car and drove back into the city. At the entrance to her former building, now converted into a stylish entrance with a sign that read Nina's Custom Atelier, there was a line. Women of all ages, seeing her car, began to whisper, "That's her, the owner. They say she sews dresses that change your fate. I saw her stream. She's such a strong woman." Alicia stepped out of the car. She smiled, not the timid smile she used to please her husband, but the smile of a winner. She cut the red ribbon. "Welcome," she said. "We are open." She walked inside her new world, where there was no place for fear, humiliation, or people who didn't know how to love. Blake remained in the past, wiped away like a stain of dirt from the hem of a queen's dress. And ahead was life, her own. Well, friends, that's the story. A difficult one, but I think very instructive. You know, while reading, I kept thinking, did Alicia do the right thing? On the one hand, it was cruel. Sending her mother-in-law to a remote village, putting her husband away for 15 years, and even giving him a bill at the end. Some would say it's revenge, and others would say it's justice. After all, think about it. They didn't just hurt her, they tried to destroy her, morally, financially, and even physically. Blake killed her mother and set fire to her home. Her mother-in-law covered up a murderer for money. Can you really forgive something like that? Can you turn the other cheek when you're being stabbed in the back? I think Alicia did what she had to do. She didn't seek revenge dirtily. She simply allowed the law and karma to take their course. She protected herself and her mother's memory. And most importantly, she didn't break. She turned her pain into strength, into creativity. What do you think? Was she too harsh on the old mother-in-law? Should she have given her money and forgiven her? Or did she get off easy? Write in the comments. I'm very interested in your opinion. I always read what you write. And also, if you like this story, if it touched you deeply, please hit the like button. It helps our channel a lot. Subscribe if you haven't already so you don't miss new dramas. We have many more stories in store that will give you chills. Do you want to know what happened to Alicia next? Did she find new love? Did she ever forgive her ex-husband? If you want a continuation, write "I want a continuation" in the comments. All the best to you. At the end of this video, a box will appear in the middle of the screen. Please click on that box. Our other most interesting stories will be there. Take care of yourself and your loved ones. I'm really glad you're here and that I could share my story with you. If you liked it, show me by liking the video and subscribing to my channel. Let's see how many of us there are. Write in the comments which city you're watching from and what time it is. I'm so curious to know where all you wonderful people are tuning in from. If you want to support me a little extra, you can also send a small donation. I share new life stories for you every single day. And now, 2 of my most popular stories will pop up on the screen, so you can choose what to watch next.